You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Today we are going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about the most recent episode of Andor. We are going to talk about the Halloween episode of Quantum Leap. And we're going to talk about some breaking news. Let's kick it off with the news. Actually, I'm going to kick it off with something that I just learned and I've been wondering about. Do you guys remember one of probably the funniest commercials that came out back in like 2012? And that's with the guy up late at night and he's on the phone and the wife comes down and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" And he says, "It's Jake from State Farm." And he grabs the phone and she talks to him and says, "Who's this? Or what are you wearing?" He says, "Khakis." Yeah, the Jake from State Farm commercial. Well, that went over very well. A lot of people liked that commercial. It was funny. So they started a whole campaign off of that commercial. And now Jake from State Farm is kind of their mascot, is their guy, you know? He's the Flo, Progressive's Flo, is Jake from State Farm. But most of us realize that they changed Jake. Jake went from being kind of this average-looking, middle-aged white guy to being an African-American guy. And I always wondered why it was. I think a lot of people did. Why did they change Jake's? Well, there's a story behind it. And if you remember, there was an episode, a commercial that had both Jakes, the original and the new one. And then they just kind of went with the new one going forth. JD says, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I am Jake from State Farm. I had to go into hiding after death threats from Allstate." Funny, very funny. Well, it turns out the reason they changed the Jake from State Farm is that the commercial was never meant to be a big campaign. It was a one-off. And they had a contest for just the average employee to enter to be in a commercial. And that guy won. And his name was Jake. So Jake from State Farm, the original, really is Jake from State Farm. He's a State Farm employee. And he won a raffle or a drawing or whatever it was to be Jake from State Farm on the commercial. Well, when they decided to move forward, the red shirt is like Thor's hammer or Jake was worthy, other Jake was worthy. nice. Um, so when they decided to do the commercial line, they thought, well, we probably should get an actual actor. And the guy who was Jake didn't want to do it, so they ended up hiring a new Jake. So that's how they ended up going from the original guy to the current guy, is because they had never planned for Jake from State Farm to be their mascot or to be their spokesman or whatever you want to call it. It just happened organically. And the Jake they used turned out wasn't an actor. So they had to get an actor. So that's how we ended up with the new Jake from State Farm. Yeah. Just found that out yesterday. I was kind of surprised by that. I was like, makes a lot of sense. Because I was like, what? They didn't like the guy after all. They wanted to do affirmative action, higher diversity. I don't know. I couldn't figure out what the reasoning was. It didn't make a lot of sense. There it is. So, all right, let's get into the news. If Kyle were here, this would be his top story of the day. Well, it came out yesterday. There had been a rumor going around for a few hours, probably a SAG thing. They didn't want to Taft Hartley, Jake. Okay, yeah. There's a good point there. So there was a rumor going around earlier in the day. One of the websites had put out that The Sandman, the series on Netflix based on the Neil Gaiman Vertigo series, had been canceled. Netflix had decided not to do anymore. And I think it was Discussing Film was one of the ones that put it out there. Well, like a lot of these sites who go with sources that aren't really sources and just throw things out there. And Neil Gaiman immediately responded to someone posting that and went, somebody had posted, "Oh, it must suck to be Neil Gaiman today." And he wrote back, "No, it's good being Neil Gaiman. And not only am I having a good day, but I can tell when a news story is fake." Well, it turns out it was, because Netflix came out and announced there will be a second season of The Sandman. Not sure how quickly, what's the story on it, but I think Netflix probably came out just to squash that rumor, but they have given it a second season. So if you're a fan of the series, I was. I still haven't watched all of the bonus episode. I still love the idea that they did a bonus episode. But I've watched the full season twice because I watched it and then Lisa came down and she wanted to watch it, so we watched it. And then they did the bonus episode, and I watched the first part, the animated one with the cats, and then I started watching the one with Arthur Darvill. And I know that story, and it's a rough one, so I just haven't finished it yet. But I'll get back to it, and then we'll get the second season, which will be awesome. All right, so what are we seeing on the board here? Ed says that explains a lot. The first Jake was hilariously disinterested. The new Jake is kind of a showboat. Yeah. JD says, I love throwing around industry terms as if I was part of it. Jay says, folks, cheap plug for Dan. Thank you. But research for unbiased research info, you should really follow Dan on all social media. And you should. You really should. I'm doing a lot of, I come on here and I give you the news, but I tell the news as soon as I see it on TikTok. That's how I'm using TikTok right now. And I've only been doing it for a little while now, but I've got about, I'm starting to build my followers. So the more people we get on there, the better it goes. More effort I can put into it. Also, I think when I get to the first 100 followers, I'm going to tell the story of how I ended up on as a dead body on an episode of Dexter, which is a good story. So we'll put that up on TikTok when we get to 100 followers. Let's see. Ed says, I liked it much better after you did the show for me, answering my questions. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome, Ed. I'm glad we were able to do that show. JD says Screen Rant is likely gearing up to publish 7 articles about it getting canceled. Who needs to do research? Nice. I followed Dan once, but he never followed me back. Okay, JD, that's stalking, not following. It's a little different. And the restraining order is, we know about that. Okay. So let's get on to the other news, which I find really interesting. They're starting to move forward on Agatha Coven of Chaos, the show formerly known as House of Harkness. JDE says, I didn't watch the episode with cats, but I read it and found it genuinely disquieting. Yeah. So Agatha Coven of Chaos, they're really starting to move forward with it. And they've cast a bunch of people in the last couple days. It's going to be done by Jack Schaefer, who was the original writer on WandaVision. This is a WandaVision spinoff. So this is one of 2 shows that are kind of a sequel to WandaVision. We're going to find out what happens with Agatha, and we're going to find out what happens with the Vision, because they're going to do this one called Vision Quest. But Vision Quest is just getting rolling, and there's a chance it might tie into Wonder Man. And that's because of the comic history. They're both moving forward. They cast Wonder Man with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and they're moving forward with Vision Quest. So that's over there. What they're doing with Agatha is really interesting because they've added an actor named Joe Locke. And I don't remember off the top of my head where Joe's been seen before, but Joe looks like, and this is what a lot of speculation is, that he could be like an older version of the kid who played Wiccan in WandaVision. That maybe he's working with Agatha to learn his abilities, which doesn't quite follow where we got left off, but I could see that working. JD says, this is strange to me. Agatha was cool in WandaVision, but her own series, okay. Well, I have some ideas what they may be going with it, and that's part of it is the casting. Yesterday, we found out that Aubrey Plaza was joining the cast as an unnamed role. We also know that Emma Caulfield Ford, who was in WandaVision as Dottie, is going to be around in the new season. Now, there was a lot of speculation at the time that Dottie might also have been a caster. And people thought that maybe she was Arcana, another Marvel character. That was one of the going theories. Now, and then of course there was always the going theory that Mephisto was involved. There was also the bunny that I don't remember, was the bunny named Nicholas or was it Scratch or something like that? Anyway, so Aubrey Plaza got cast yesterday. Today, they've added, let's see, got it here, Ali On, who's in Raising Dion, and Maria Dezia from The Staircase also have been added. And along with Joe Locke and Aubrey Plaza, they're all characters that haven't been, what role they're playing hasn't been revealed yet. Now, there's not a lot of Agatha Harkness stories out there. It's not like, if you're going to do a story about Captain America, you've got a ton of source material to pull from. Agatha has a few stories where she is involved with stuff with Mephisto, with Master Pandemonium, with Umar. Umar is someone we might be getting into. She's the sister of Dormammu and the mother of Clea. And we just met Clea in Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness at the very end, played by Charlize Theron. Now, I think it would be kind of weird to have Aubrey Plaza playing Charlize Theron's mother. JD says, hopefully Agatha will be good, but when I hear these types of shows announced, I can only think it's just more superhero fatigue, which I'm not sure is good for Marvel overall moving forward. Well, what I think they may be doing is the Salem 7. Now, the Salem 7 is a group of magically mutated superhumans, all of whom share the same father, Nicholas Scratch. And Nicholas Scratch is the son of Agatha Harkness. And she ends up going up against them. And it's really the big bad group for Agatha. Now, again, it's hard to say what they're going to do, but since they're casting these female characters, if Dottie's part of it, or Emma Caulfield Ford, Aubrey Plaza, Ali Ahn, and Maria DeZia, if maybe they're building the Salem 7. Now, it was a mix of guys and girls, so we could see some others, but I think it's possible they're building the Salem 7, who maybe they get a hold of Wiccan, and Agatha has to find a way to stop him, to save him. Can you turn Agatha into a hero at this point? Because Agatha, yes, she was trying to steal power, but she also saw the Scarlet Witch as being a force of evil, and that she was going to destroy the world, and she almost did if it wasn't for Doctor Strange. So could Agatha be a protagonist in the series? Could she be redeemed? Marvel does like to redeem their characters. That's especially if they're popular. Look at Loki, Werpenstein, good to see you, says, I'm not sure why MCU seems to be concerned with casting known actors. Most of the great shows over the last 10 years have started relatively unknown actors and made them into stars. Yeah. And where besides Aubrey Plaza, I don't think a lot of people know Joe Locke, Ali Ahn, and Maria DeZia. Those are still pretty relatively unknown people. Emma Caulfield Ford is not really a household name. I mean, she was in Buffy, but so these aren't big actors. Aubrey Plaza has a following, but again, she's not a big movie actress either. She's done a couple, but she doesn't carry a movie by herself. So none of these are really big actors. Kathryn Hahn may be the most recognizable of all of them. Jay says, same Werpenstein. I love the casting for Blade, but part of me wishes they went with a younger, unknown black actor. I don't think, just on the side note, I think Blade is being made because Mahershala Ali came in and said, I want to do this, where Blade may have fallen farther back. I think it was Ali's interest in it that may have moved it forward. JD says, who has the rights to Buffy? I would love it if they made her into a Marvel version of Anya. Well, Whedon probably still has the rights to Buffy. One of the comic companies is doing it. Not IDW, Boom. I think it's Boom. Boom Studios does the comics. But, the TV wise, it's probably still tied up between Whedon and, let's see, that was on, wasn't the CW? I don't remember who Buffy played on. Disney now. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess they could bring Buffy in. But I don't know if they'd want to cross those streams. It was produced by 20th Century Fox. Okay. Well, I think Disney and Marvel altogether is going to stay far away from Whedon after all the stuff that came out about him. So I don't think it'll be Buffy anytime soon. But yeah, if they're building the Salem 7, then maybe Joe Locke isn't going to play Wiccan. He might be playing Nicholas Scratch. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential there. And we're also talking about, I said it'd be weird for Aubrey Plaza to play Charlize Theron's mom, but Kathryn Hahn's been around. The Agatha's been around for decades, centuries. So again, age may not be a relative thing. But I just think the casting is really interesting for a show that would seem like very insular, very small in what they could do with it. I do love the idea that if Joe Locke is Wiccan, to make him a little older, put him as a contemporary of some of these other young Avenger actors they've been bringing in. Because, I'm not a big proponent of them doing a Young Avengers movie. I'm still thinking there's a ton of great stuff to do before we get to the Young Avengers. But it would be, they do seem to be going that direction with all these new castings and new characters being introduced. They are building the Young Avengers. So I could see them doing that, aging up Speed as well, and just have to see where that goes. I like that. Werpenstein says, bring back Christy Swanson, and I'm in. Yeah, I'm an old school Buffy fan too. I remember seeing in the theater, sitting through Paul Rubin's dying scene in the ending credits. Yeah, big fan of that. So, but no, I think we're going to get some more interesting news on Agatha. I'm getting a little more interested as I'm seeing some of these castings, because I think some of the storylines that they might be going for would be fun to see. Like I said, and if they do the Salem 7 and they do it like they did in the comics, I mean, these are all mutated characters. There was one woman who was like a snake from the waist down and had snake arms and was green. There was one guy that looked kind of like Triton from the Inhumans, the scaly with the big fin. There was another guy that looked like a giant bull. There was a woman that looked like a fawn. I mean, it could be interesting. I doubt they're going to go that direction. They may treat it like a coven. But either way, I think most of what we're getting cast-wise is going to be part of the coven. So, and this all could take place back in the past, too. So there's a lot of possibility here. But I could see them using this as a vehicle for aging up Wiccan and Speed. It says, longest death in cinema history. Probably. I would put Boromir close. I don't know which one's longer. I'd have to actually run the tape. Because Boromir was dying for a long time. Deadpool 2 might be up there too. Yeah. Rutger Hauer was fantastic in that. Yes, he was. Rutger Hauer was fantastic in most of the movies he was in. Even the bad ones, Blind Fury, Rutger Hauer made that movie watchable. So, all right, guys, that's covering the news. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the Halloween episode of Quantum Leap and the most recent episode of Andor. We'll be right back.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hi, I'm Ryan Brown. I am the co-creator of 8 Billion Genies and Curse Words, and I'm the sole creator of God Hates Astronauts. And you're watching us on The Experience.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. This just in from Deadline. It seems that Warner Brothers Discovery did not hit their third quarter Wall Street projections. So David Zaslav is scrambling a little bit. They've decided to move up the combo launch idea of HBO Max and Discovery Plus. So if you already have HBO Max to watch the new Game of Thrones series, House of Dragons, or Perry Mason, or the Batman animated series, anything like that, you'll soon now be able to bundle it and also be able to watch all the Magnolia stuff and everything else on Discovery Plus, the Property Brothers. I guess I'm just throwing out names that I can think of off the top of my head. But the other thing is that, and I love this quote, Zaslav says, the grand experiment of creating something at any cost is over. But he still believes the golden age of content is absolutely not over. So the idea that doesn't matter what it costs, just do good stuff. I don't know when Warner Brothers started doing that, but he seems to think that that's a bad idea. Now, he's still trying to save money. The original target was $300 billion. Now it's $300.5 billion, up another $500 million over the initial target, which is quite a lot. But this is why they did stuff like killed the J.J. Abrams HBO drama series Demande, why they took and killed the Batgirl movie to take the tax write-off. They've turned down some other stuff. It's why they cut the kids and young adult content on HBO Max. And this is a quote from him. He says, I was recently asked if I thought the golden age of content was over. I said, absolutely not. There's nothing more important than content. People consuming more content than ever they have ever. But it has to be great content. It's no longer about how much. So I guess he thinks that everybody was like, what makes good shows is how much money you spend on it. I don't know if that's really a smart. Do people really think that? You know, he points out that stuff like House of the Dragon, Euphoria, the Batman, Harry Potter, Friends, and the Big Bang Theory. Those are some of the highlights to him. But yeah, he's, you know, he says a strategy to collapse all windows, start linear and theatrical, spend money with abandon while making a fraction return is deeply flawed. So it sounds like he's specifically going after the previous regime. You know, with the idea of, oh, we're just going to put things straight onto HBO Max. And yeah, it sounds like that's what he's going after. Is basically all the people that used to be at Warner Brothers. Okay, let's look and see what we've missed. Blind Fury was my favorite. It was. That sounds like a fun YouTube video. Boromir versus Amlin, who clung on to live longer. I could see that side by side, maybe with what would be a good song on it. Sarah McLachlan's Eyes of the Into the Arms of a Stranger. That would be interesting. I have to think, what would be the good tune to play over that? Yeah. JD says, Christy may have gone down the Kevin Sorbo path a bit, though. Ooh, that's disappointing. There's my Kevin Sorbo joke because of the disappointed meme or video. Ken, how you doing? Jay says, how the universe works. Werpenstein says, the co-leaders of Warner Brothers' biggest video game developer quit yesterday. I had not heard that part. They made all the great Batman games. Okay. I thought that was Rockstar that did those. Didn't Rockstar do the Arkham games? Or am I missing? I'm not very good with video game stuff. How the universe works is on Discovery Plus. Oh, okay. Ed says, do you really want to hurt? Ooh. Oh, good call, Ed. Don't Fear the Reaper's not a bad one, but do you really want to hurt me? There, rock steady. That's it. Yes, they were a WB studio. Okay. Interesting. So, and he quit. Wow. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about, did you guys see this week's Quantum Leap? I'm getting more and more into this show. And this last episode was a little strange. They did a Halloween-themed one, and the original Quantum Leap had a Halloween-themed episode that was well celebrated. So they decided to do one here, which I thought was pretty interesting because it was kind of a cross between a Halloween episode and a murder mystery, as Ben has to perform an exorcism. He ends up jumping into the body of an old priest and has to perform an exorcism on a young girl. And it's kind of a fascinating episode because my one knock on the new series is they're not really spending that much time focused on the people they're leaping into. They're focusing on the situation, but they seem to be spending more time with Ben dealing with his lack of memory, all this stuff. Well, and we get another twist at the end of this one as well. Was that when he leaped in to help Stephen King? Maybe. Slips my mind. There was one that they've really talked about, but off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank. So the whole episode is set, again, they're doing bigger time travel, more distance in this one. He's going way into the past, but also he doesn't have Addison to help him out. There's something blocking. Well, we find out what's blocking is that Al's daughter, Al Kvecki's daughter, is trying to get a hold of Ben. And I think it's her trying to jump in is what's keeping Addison out. So they don't really get to that. And you think, oh, it must be the ghost or the demon that's possessing the child that he's supposed to exorcise is causing all this thing. So he's kind of on his own. And this is a man of science who's jumped into the body of a priest. Ed says the Stephen King, or JD says Stephen King one was the first appearance of the devil, I think. Yeah. There's even a reference that Ian in the episode says that Sam believed that God was guiding the leaps, which I thought was kind of interesting because I don't remember that. But I wasn't a dedicated watcher. I would watch some of them. I enjoyed the ones. So that one kind of surprised me if Sam, because Sam was also a man of science. But so Ben was really interesting in this one because he looked at the nature of religion and he looked at what people get from religion, and that from that point of view. But at the same time, he ended up with this situation that he didn't believe could work. But, how is it a real demon? Even though all of this stuff is presenting as evidence, and it's interesting how he gets around certain things, like, the fact that there's no internet and he doesn't have Edison there. Well, it turns out one of the people is a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman. And they have all these encyclopedias in the house. So he ends up going to an encyclopedia to try to figure out the answer. Like a lot of us had to do when we were young, before the internet. When you had to like look things up in a book. I thought that was pretty interesting, and it's funny that they do that in the Halloween episode, because could you imagine the horror on a kid's face now, a younger person's face now, if you handed them a 20 volume or a 16 volume encyclopedia set and said, "Look it up. There's your Wikipedia, the encyclopedia. That was the original." Yeah, JD, books, what are those again? Heavy papery things, right? Yeah, it's the offline version of Wikipedia. What's funny is I grew up in, I was born in 1970. So when our family had a set of encyclopedias, but I didn't really need them until I was 9, 10, a little bit older. And the set we had, I think it was from 67 or 68. So like the section on Vietnam was a work in progress. Stuff like that. So I could do like old research, but more modern stuff, no. I'd have to go to the library for that because ours was very out of date. We had an old Funk and Wagnall set, and I'd be going to look something up. It's like I couldn't imagine what an encyclopedia would look like nowadays. Do they even still make them? Is there a demand for them? I love the idea of them because I'm still tactile. I love books. I want to feel a book in my hand still. I don't necessarily, but what is the library? Thankfully, there's still libraries, but a lot of people just use them now because they don't have access to a computer. They go to the library for one. I remember walking to the public library from my house, and oh man, you guys are making me feel old again. But so yeah, the new episode of Quantum Leap, again, they're still focused on this story of multiple leapers and other people accessing Ziggy and the past, and we don't know where he's going. But you still have Sam or Ben leaping into these things, and I did love the fact that Ben was on his own in this, and Addison was forced out and couldn't get back in. Everything was offline, And, I love that. I love that we got to spend time with just Ben, but they do keep going back to these other people. And I miss the fact that, other than Al popping up occasionally, we never really went back to base. So that is one of the differences. But I do enjoy the show. Again, it doesn't quite feel like Quantum Leap, but it's cool. So Ed says, I did the same thing. We lived out in the sticks, and the township library was only about a mile away. Used to walk there for story time, check out books, records, and even board games. The local library here now allows you to check out audiobooks, and I'm a big audiobook fan. So I was doing that for a little while until I found Audible. The World Book Encyclopedia, only full A to Z encyclopedia, is still published in print in 2023. On sale now. Oh my, really? $1,135? That's insane. Who are they selling it to? Who are they selling a book that basically becomes outdated the moment you print it? And I could understand if it's a couple $100, because there's a lot of, how many? 22 volumes. 22 volumes. They do it hardcover, even at $20 a book. That still seems like more than double what it should be. Cheaper than an omnibus collection. Yeah, true. Jay just says, nah, I'll just wiki. The only problem with wiki is that the general populace can change it. So, yeah. I think I missed somebody's post before that. Oh, yeah, you can take out new video games in my local library. Nice. Yeah. I do like libraries, and I'll send some comics and stuff to the libraries. One of my neighbors on the next street over has this neat thing where he, in his front yard, he has this box, and it's got a glass front, and it's basically a lender's library that if you want a book, you can just come by and take a book, and you can put one in. And I think that's really cool. That is just like a neighborhood book exchange or library. So I went by and dropped some of my own books in there, some of the Lucius Fogg books, and I went by a few days later out of curiosity and gone. It's like, cool. So, hey, Mark, good to see you. Glad you made it. All right, guys, let's do a quick break. We'll get back, and then we'll talk about the latest and depressing episode of Andor. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning into The Experience. Help us out and hit subscribe over on YouTube, and click the bell when you do. Need some help? Scan the QR code in the bottom corner.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Who would win, Batman or Superman? It's the age-old debate, except it's so much more complicated than that. Nerd Killer Warfare every week on The Experience is your chance to debate other nerds in the questions we've all been asking for years, except we take those debates and turn them up to 11. Go to bit.ly/EXP casting or scan the QR code to be part of the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. They should be just down there in the corner. Also, come back on Monday. Well, I don't normally do a show on Monday, but on Monday, Miss Jen is going to be interviewing Dan Jurgens, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. That should be a great interview. And remember to check out membership services. You know, our own Werpenstein here is a member. And you guys should be like him. Don't you want to be like Werpenstein? Get your name in green. It's pretty cool. Werpen says, I've not started Andor yet. She-Hulk really bummed me out. Oh, I'm sorry you didn't like She-Hulk. And I haven't even gone back to Disney Plus in over a month. Andor is really good. It's different than anything else Star Wars, but it's really good. So we'll get to that in a minute. JD says, I donated my entire collection of paperback sci-fi fantasy books to Library Ones. They didn't put them on the shelf, so they sold them in their thrift shop for funding. So people bought them. That means they're going to read them. And they're going to be probably treated better when somebody buys them than when they borrow them. Ed says, the cheapest encyclopedia set in the world book on Amazon for $8.99. You can get them electronically for $17.99 a piece. Wow. JD says, he did the same thing. Not a whole collection, but what I did donate. Yeah, my ex-wife is a voracious reader, and for her, it's horror books. She just devours them, basically. Just loves horror. And got to the point where it was like, she didn't have enough shelf space and really didn't want to just keep buying bookshelves. So she would take, them down and then donate them. But I always found it fascinating because you'd think, well, if you donate them, just every once in a while, wouldn't you accidentally buy the same book again? Because she'd go to, used bookstores and library sales and stuff and buy more and more. And she'd buy them in huge quantities. And I asked her, I said, how do you keep track? And she says, well, if I read the first page, I know if I've read it or not. I'm like, wait, just the first page? She goes, yeah. If I read the first couple paragraphs, I can tell if I've read a book or not. And I'm thinking, I've got a pretty good memory. I mean, you guys have seen how much of the stuff I remember. I couldn't do that. Not just from a couple paragraphs in the beginning of a book, but yeah, she could do that. I thought it was pretty impressive. All right, so let's talk Andor. Am I the only one having freezing issues on the video? Don't know. I'm not, but I don't think I would if I was the one freezing. It would just seem normal to me. Okay, JD's not seeing it. Anybody else having an issue with the freezing? See, now I'm just going to mess around and just every once in a while and then go back to talking. Warpensteen says it's good for him. Okay, let's just keep going. I don't have a lot of time to talk about Andor, but this episode, we see a lot of things going into place. We find out that Mon Mothma has possibly been moving funds for the rebellion that could get her caught. and that she may end up having to make a deal with basically the equivalent of a Star Wars mob boss to cover her tracks, which I think is kind of interesting. We also discover that she has a cousin who is part of the rebellion, and we've already met her. Vel, the one who ran the heist operation, well, that's her cousin. So I thought that was pretty interesting that she's related to Mon Mothma. But I think that's going to play out. We're going to, by the end of this, I have a feeling Mon Mothma is going to go full into the rebellion. Oh, by the way, there's the link in chat for the Dan Jurgens interview if you want the reminder. So if you want to watch it, just click for the reminder on that. So we only really got 3 of the stories. We got the Mon Mothma story, which is her that being set up for her having to deal with a gangster. We got more of the ISB agent Debra and how she's really moving forward. Things are starting to come together. Her investigation's starting to pay off. She's getting more and more, they're taking more and more notice of her. But Cyril, the guy that was chasing Andor in the beginning, went full-on creepy stalker mode. And I did not see that coming. I thought we would get him ending up working with Debra. But instead, this came across like he was suddenly interested in her. He got a promotion at his job. He went to find her and thank her and talked about how they were kindred spirits and the thing that because he had met her and that she was going after Andor and saw what a threat he was, that there was beauty in the universe again. And that was way over the top. I don't know where they're going with that. I didn't even know if that was necessary. That needs to pay off big because right now that's just full-on creepy mode. And I don't know where that came from. And I don't know. That just was out of left field. Actually, a lot of the stuff that happened, both the Mon Mothma thing and the Debra thing, really surprised me. And I said earlier this week, I thought we would get the prison break this week because I thought there were 3 episode arcs and then the last 3 would be, him doing another mission or getting fully into the rebellion. But no, we did not get the prison break this week. Instead, we got more time in the prison, which I have a hard time seeing why we needed it, because I thought his life was already crap at that point. So him wanting to break out of prison didn't surprise me. I didn't think it needed to be set up. But we get a whole thing about the older guy working at the same table as Andor, as Cassian, having a stroke. And we discover that they're being lied to. That's the big thing from all this. They're being lied to. They're being told, oh, you serve your thing. Hey, Hal. You serve your thing and you serve your time and then you get out. But they're not getting out. What they're doing is you serve your time on one floor and then they find another reason to keep you and they move you to another floor. Well, in this, we discover that there was a mistake. Somebody who was on 2 was then released to level 4, but they ended up back on 2 instead. And then they just figured it out that, oh, no one's getting out. And to cover this up, they had to kill everybody on level 2. And yeah, the word of that is starting to get around. So the BS that they did to keep these guys in line just went out the window. JD says, I feel like this is the first Star Wars that treats Star Wars world as if it was real. There's no space wizards, no black knights, just regular people dealing with a ruthless totalitarian government. Really, you're going to bust out totalitarian in the middle of it? It's almost the end of the show, man. And so because the old guy basically had a stroke or a massive heart attack, and the med guy, paramedic, basically just gives him medication to, end it for him because they're not getting out. He's supposed to have 40 shifts left. And it's like, no, he's never getting out of here. He's just going to get moved to another floor. Well, this pushes Andy Serkis's character of Loy over as well. So where in the beginning of the episode, Cassian's like, how many guards are on each level? He's asking him questions. And Loy is like, no, I'm not telling you this stuff. You gotta go with the program. And by the end of it, he's giving him information because he realizes that all of this is a lie and they're never going to get out of there. That they're basically just slave labor and will be there until they die. So where I thought it would just be Cassian and Melshi, the guy that ends up in Rogue One with him, doing a prison break, this is starting to seem like it may be a huge prison break. So, all of Floor 7, maybe even more. And Cassian is definitely working on a prison break. So will we get it next week? Is it going to be a prison break that takes over like 3 episodes? I hope not. I was really hoping we were going to get back to Luthen and the rebellion and kind of get things moving there so that, another story arc, another adventure, because it's kind of depressing seeing them in jail. But yeah, Mark says, totalitarian, that's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It's definitely not anti-disestablishmentarianism. You guys are really starting to mess with me now. So just for that, I'm going to go ahead and end the show. See, I've got the power here. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there anyway. So next week's Andor, hopefully we get a prison break. I think I'll look forward to it. Also, we got to find out what's going on with Quantum Leap and how is all these people being able to leap as well. Getting communicated from Al's daughter, this other evil leaper. So some good stuff coming up. Plus, we got Wakanda Forever coming out on the 11th. So be some great stuff to talk about. Stick around. I don't know what the lineup is next, but I believe What's in the Box should be up next. And stick around after that. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at the experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.